Welcome to Annitude, a relationship podcast about love, friendships, and everything in between. Hello, welcome to Annitude with Anna. I'm here with a special guest to talk about a very sensitive topic, trigger warning, sexual assault, Bill Cosby in general. So welcome, Charles, to the podcast.
Hello.
So Charles has been on before. He's the owner of Legendphx. Go check it out. I'll link it in the show notes, but we're here to talk about fucking Bill disgusting ass Cosby. So Charles told me about the documentary We Need to Talk About Cosby, and I watched it all in one sitting because I knew about it, but it's just different hearing from actual victims and just hearing different perspectives from people who knew him. So it was wild. So what do you think about the documentary?
Well, I knew it was coming. I saw the promos for it, and because I think it premiered at Sundance this year.
Okay.
So I was super excited about it. In a not like looking forward to it.
Nobody wants to hear what's going to happen, but yeah, looking forward to seeing, a different perspective besides the ones that we've been seeing on the news. And there really has been, coverage of the trial and everything, but it's different to see the reactions from people after the trial. So
yeah, I think some people are still split, right? I think they're having a hard time detaching America's dad from what really happened, right? And some people don't actually believe that he could do these things. So I think the documentary kind of shows you that there's more than enough evidence that he's a pretty wicked predator, right? Pretty sad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we'll dive into more America's Dad, that title, because I don't know about you, but I never watched the Cosby Show. We weren't allowed to watch the Cosby Show because
oh wow, you weren't?
We were not allowed to watch the Cosby Show because
too wild, huh?
Too crazy. But because he was corny. Like my dad was like, "You're not watching that jive shit," basically. So
that's interesting. No, tell me more about that, Anna. Because at the time, Cosby Show was like number one.
Yes,
like and I'm a child of the '80s,
right.
So Thursday nights, it was 7:00 Cosby Show, and then 7:30 was Different World. Like it was
the must-see TV.
Night of nights, must-see TV. And it was a big part of my childhood. It was a very fond memory, something that was a very good thing. And just in general, it was a good portrayal of a Black family. It wasn't Good Times, right? Where James is out of work. And you have JJ, right?
Yeah, Dynamite.
And Jimmy Walker, right?
Like some coon shit. So yeah.
Yeah, like what's happening now? This was a doctor and a lawyer with kids who were going to college. You had Sandra, who just came from Harvard, right? And with Elvin, they met at Harvard. So it was totally a game changer. It was such a huge part of my life and so many people's lives in the 80s. So it's interesting that you weren't able to watch it, right? So tell me about that. Why did your dad give you the red flag on that?
Because my dad was more of like a Red Fox kind of comedian, like a Richard Pryor. So he liked like the real, like, vulgar humor. And to him, Cosby was like whack. Like he would never associate with a man like Cosby, and he would never, he obviously we watched like Fresh Prince, but it was more like, I don't know, accessible to our family because like that's kind of like the hip hop, all that stuff that we grew up with. My dad grew up with like NWA and all that kind of stuff. So that was more, for him, that was the culture, was, how Will Smith acted. But Bill Cosby was always jive to my dad. Like he would say, "You're not watching that jive shit. That family is like fake." Because my dad just, even though they are successful, they're, that's who white people can find palatable, is that kind of family, not the average family, which would be like my family. My dad's like a blue collar worker. There's, I got so many siblings, and it's like we're not poor, we're not rich, we're middle class. So like that's not palatable because that's average. And the only average for white people is the average white family, not the average Black family. So it's like there's only two different, ranges that Black people can be like extremely successful to be palatable for white people. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're the good ones, or super poor and ignorant. So like a good times. So
good time.
Yeah, that's my dad never let us watch the show. We never were interested in it. I used,
well, he was hip, right? He already knew.
My dad is still to this day, like he's with it.
He's not shocked.
Yeah. So we'd catch like reruns, like, when my parents weren't around, and we were like, nah, we're not watching this. Like, we're going to turn on like BET Uncut. We're not watching Cosby Show. So yeah.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I was a fan of Red Fox too, and Sanford and Son. So it's interesting when you think about what Eddie Murphy said, right? When he was talking to Richard Pryor and how Bill Cosby kind of shunned Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, said he doesn't like how he
could only have one Black man in Hollywood at the time. And then he calls Eddie Murphy about the language he's using, right? And then Eddie Murphy mentions that to Richard Pryor. And what did Richard Pryor say to Eddie Murphy? Like, tell him to suck my dick?
Yeah.
But Richard Pryor was probably what your dad was in tune with, right? So even Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy definitely saw something then that we're seeing now. And even, it was funny, I also saw like an episode with Eddie Murphy on Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Yeah.
And he was telling Jerry Seinfeld about how Cosby was basically a dick to him, right? This is Eddie Murphy, right? You could argue is one of the greatest comedians of all time.
Yes.
Right? And how Bill Cosby was an ass to him, was a dick to him. So it's just definitely interesting, kind of piggybacking what you're saying with your dad, that there were certain Black comedians that didn't vibe with him either, right? So I think people could sense that. Now, I couldn't when I was growing up. I was 5 and 6 and 7 when that show was on, so I didn't get that vibe. But I totally see it now, though.
Right, and it's just it's like a caricature of like what we think white people want to see, and like you can obviously, it's like, why is that so shocking that there's a doctor and a lawyer that are married, but then we go into, the family dynamics. Like it's very, I don't know, it just wasn't authentic in my opinion. And looking, watching it now, I'm like, this isn't an authentic family. This isn't what I identify with, being successful. That's not how I want my family to be whacked like that. So I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well, it's very snobbish. And we know that now, because especially like even in the documentary, you see how he treated Wanda Sykes, right? Like, we speak English.
Yeah, like who are you to that is horrible to say.
That's cringeworthy.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can see it's a very snobbish, very uppity portrayal of a Black family. That wasn't you're right. It wasn't genuine. It was very like, I'm better than you.
Yes.
We are better than you.
Yes.
Yeah. And totally that's coming from his perspective and how he treated people, especially as he got older, right?
Exactly.
Which was just deplorable.
It's disgusting. So when I think about Cosby, I think about when I first found out, because I had no idea about the sexual assault allegations, because I mean, when did it come out? Like 2012, like when Hannibal Buress.
Yeah.
I was not checking for Bill Cosby. I was in college. I didn't know what the hell he was up to, but I remember watching that video because it was all over, YouTube when YouTube first started popping off. And I think like he gets credit, but not enough credit. Just be like, for women, and how he's still, he's in, was in Broad City. He's like very, pro feminism and all that. So I think that was a great person to bring this to light, especially since he was kind of like a no-name comedian to most people. So it was very interesting in rewatching it now, how blatant he was. Like, this is what Bill Cosby's doing. You guys need to pay attention. Like, he's disgusting. So
yeah, I think what happened, and I think there were allegations in the early 2000s that kind of people swept under the rug. Like you see in the documentary, people, once they heard the allegations, like, there's no way that Bill Cosby could have done this, right? and people kind of forgot about it. And it wasn't until Hannibal Buress later on, a decade later, brought it up, right? And it definitely went viral, right? It
Right.
was like, wow, who's this dude attacking Bill Cosby? So this dude literally is owed a ton of credit, right? And you could honestly say, without Hannibal Buress bringing it up, would there even have been a conviction? Would there even have been a trial, right? It almost compelled other women, right, to
Yeah.
come forward and empowered them
Right.
to speak out. So this dude definitely, Hannibal Buress is, I've seen him live like once or twice, but he's an amazing dude and definitely doesn't get the credit he deserves for this.
Right. Right. And when people say that couldn't be Bill Cosby, do you think it's because he created this persona in order to, have people second guessing what he was doing? Or do you think his persona was created by the media? Like, do you think he knew what he was doing by being Bill Cosby?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, right? Like when you look at Bill Cosby in the lens of like other serial killers, like they can manage this dichotomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the serial killer who has his day job, but the night job, he's out like Ted Bundy style,
Right.
right? And I think Bill Cosby has that dichotomy. He definitely was a borderline serial killer, definitely was a serial rapist.
Yeah.
The only thing that differentiates
Sociopath.
him from like the Green River Killer or Ted Bundy
Right.
is that, he didn't actually murder anyone. So, but he was a serial rapist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, he had two sides to him. And I think it was definitely calculated. Everything about Bill Cosby was calculated. There was nothing by accident in his image and how he was trying to be portrayed in the media and just his reputation overall.
Right. And do you think that both things can be true, that somebody can be a horrible person but also contribute to society? Because I think that's where people get kind of
Yeah.
like they're getting dizzy by it. They're like, how can he, he can't do this, he did so much for the black culture. But it's like two things can be true. Like you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like he
Yeah.
can be a rapist and he also can have contributed to black culture. Doesn't mean they're
Oh
mutually
yeah. And
exclusive.
that's a politician though, right? Like
Yeah,
politicians,
right.
like
Absolutely.
they do some good, but you really examine their private lives and it's horrible, right? So yeah, you can do both. And I think he definitely made some contributions, especially to education. I think that's where he was huge, right? He was a
Yep.
really big proponent of education, whether it was like elementary or secondary ed. I mean, we saw that it was almost, but here's the deal with that too. I think his career was floundering.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that after he did I Spy, which was a groundbreaking television show, right? He was the first like black star
Right.
on network TV, right? Which is huge. It was groundbreaking. And I think they showed it in the documentary. He tried to make movies, but nothing ever stuck,
Mm-hmm.
right? So his career was floundering. So I think he said, you know what? I'm going to do this Captain Kangaroo thing. I'm going to do this Mr. Rogers thing. And I'm going to go on PBS and I'm going to go the educational route. So like I look at it kind of with some skepticism because if he had like hits in the
He
early
wouldn't have
70s,
gone
I don't
into
think you would have
education.
seen that. You would never have seen that. So he found his niche and it was almost like his side hustle because his career in the mainstream and as far as Hollywood didn't take off, right? He never made a really great movie. His movies actually kind of sucked. But you probably don't remember it. They showed some of his
That
movies, but I
devil
know his
movie,
movies
I
were
was
like,
like, what in
yeah,
God's truly, what
oh,
was
it's
going
trash.
on?
Yeah, he made a bunch of trash movies. So I think he was just trying to do, and he had like variety shows. He was trying to be like Johnny Carson, and he was doing anything he possibly could have to be successful, right? He was trying anything just to be on TV. So he did the education thing because everything else failed for him.
Right, right.
But so yeah.
And I think too, with that, he could weaponize the fact that he's, an educated black man. And why aren't you guys educated? I've been trying to educate you fools for all these years. And that's another, power play for like, I'm an educated black person. Why aren't you, why aren't you going to get your educational doctorate? So, which that guy said, what the EDD's
Yeah, did he even really have an actual degree?
He said the EDD's the like baby degree, like anybody could do it, which I thought was rude because that's what I'm getting. So I was like, damn, do I have to switch majors?
Your degree is a real degree. It's a real EDD.
I don't know. I might have to get a refund from GCU. So yeah, I just feel like he weaponized like that part of him too, like saying, I'm Dr. Bill Cosby, like I know all, I'm, you know, smarter than all you, you know, dumb black people, and you should be just like me or else. It wasn't like
wasn't
inspiring.
that crazy how that came out though? Like that came out like pretty much like, wasn't that like the early 2000s? And it was like everyone was caught off guard by that.
Yeah.
And he was a person that we, like I said, we all look up to, and we kind of got put on blast, and he left people hanging and aired dirty laundry and was basically taking this right-wing stance, right? That like Mitt Romney was even using that, like, look at what Bill Cosby said, you
fucked up when Mitt Romney picks up a soundbite from you, or
you got like Ted Cruz shouting you out like, hey, look at Ted
hell
Cruz.
No,
you know.
Yeah.
So you know, you're right, I like your term weaponized, because then he used that to demean black people. And we know that nowadays it's okay to have a degree, and it's okay not to.
Yeah.
Like that's not the only avenue for you to be successful in life, and you are not better than someone because you have that. And we talked about it, and they mentioned it in the documentary, like some of his degrees had some questions, and they're
like
with
were
the
they because he was famous, or did he actually do the work? Yeah, he wrote about himself. Yeah, just strange all the way around. Like he was a narcissist to the 10th degree. Like I can't even. Yeah.
Oh, he's a predator.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
totally a predator. He's calculated. He's extremely smart and brilliant in how he targeted women. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He knew his image. He used that America's Dad model and reputation to get over on people, because people would not believe that he could do something like that. So he definitely, I always thought, like, if you did some Mindhunter stuff with him, and you did like if you really were going to criminally profile Bill Cosby, I think you know, I was thinking about that, like, why did he feel the need to drug women? Like, what was the insecurity? What was he covering up? Right. Because even, you know, we talk about Ted Bundy didn't do that. Right. So like, what psychologically would compel him to drug?
And he was like obsessed women. With talking about drugging women too. Cause you know, in those stand-ups he did, he had a bit about drugging women, which was shocking. I mean, that everybody was like,
is it like he had like, was it like literally like small penis syndrome?
Yeah,
he didn't want anyone to see his penis. He didn't want
people to remember it.
You got to go to sleep. I don't want you to look at my small penis. But I'm serious. I mean,
no.
And I'm saying that we know that, right? Especially with men, a lot of their issues come from lack of or syndrome. It's penis issues, right? Like, I'm gonna go get a big old truck and throw some big old
balls on the back of it.
Oh yeah, because my penis is small, right? I got to compensate. You're compensating for some type of. I just
lost all my big truck listeners. All my Ford F-150 listeners are gone now. Thanks a lot, Charles.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But but it's like there is something in that profile of why he did what he did, and what caused him to choose that. Like who how do you know to drug someone? How do you know? And he's a man who, he didn't drink himself or use drugs. Like, how do you even know
what it does?
And here's the thing, like he was so popular, and I think you could say right early on in his career. I think later on he wasn't a decent looking man, but I'll be honest, I think when he was younger, when I spied guy.
I was like, okay, all right, I see how he got married.
Get a girl on his own, and he could have spit game and been able to get a lot of those same things with consent. Like, so what compelled you, there's some type of sick
psychological satisfaction from an unconscious woman. I mean, that means like you have intimacy issues, you have all kinds of I mean, that's basically necrophilia in my book because it's a
Oh yeah,
non-moving
you
body.
want someone dead, right? Might
Yeah,
as well just go to the mortuary, right?
exactly. That's what I
I
picture.
think that would have been probably better than what he
Right?
did,
I
but
mean, that's why
might as well.
or like get it. I mean, back then they didn't have the sex dolls like they do now, but damn, like there are so many other avenues that like he could have used his celebrity for, but he chose to use that to get women, comfortable enough to drug them and do it multiple times to some of them, which was really sick, and make them feel like they were crazy. Like that's true. That's a sociopath right there. Like I get to gaslight somebody after you rape them while they're unconscious. Like that's too much.
Oh, it's
So
insane.
yeah, he's disgusting. And then his wife. Do you think she knew?
I think she had to. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a crazy. I'm glad you brought that up. I was just thinking about that, Anna. That in the documentary, I found it crazy that no one ever saw Camille, especially on the Cosby Show set. Like she was AWOL, right? That's already a red flag, right? It's like we only see Charles, we never see Yvette,
Yeah,
right?
that's a red flag. Like where the fuck is
like
Yvette?
we never bring Yvette over to happy hour, or she's never over at the school Christmas party, right? It's always just Charles, right? So that's a red flag. I think any woman would have to know
Have
that,
some
right? You would know
intuition,
that,
like,
Anna. Or like if I know that like Yvette is gone, my wife is gone for months at a time and I never see her, I'm never invited, something's going on. So like she had to know like he was gone for such long periods and she wasn't involved. She had to know. And I think, or at least have some huge suspicions
right.
about what he was doing. Had to. And I think she has to know now. And it's interesting that she's stuck by
I
him,
know
right?
that's strange to me, but that maybe means that she is abused by him in some sort of capacity, either emotionally or physically. I don't know. Like he's threatened her, like, you better stay with me or else, and she's dependent on him financially, I'm sure. So who knows what that.
Yeah, she wants that Cosby bag. She's
Oh,
not ready to give that up.
yeah. I mean, at one point, one of the wealthiest Black men on TV. So I'm sure that that money really makes people quiet. And which brings me
like
to the producers.
$400 million.
Yeah, that's crazy money. So, and then you got to think about like all the producers and all those assistants that knew about it. I mean, how much was he paying those people off because they knew what he would be doing with those girls when he left his, dressing room door open, like,
oh yeah,
how much was he
they
paying
were accomplices. They were accomplices. And we saw that right in the documentary, how like they would bring women in by the dozens and sit in the front row, and then they had his assistants bring them back. And it's definitely, that's creepy, right? Like you have to know. And people are acting like, remember one of his writers or one of his producers was like, oh, we don't know, we were just writing, we didn't see that. Like, no, you're just observant, right? It's like if you're at school, Anna, and you always see like pretty parents going into the principal's office, or the cute young pretty teachers always going to the principal's office, door gets shut behind. Like everyone knows that. Like it's very, you see that, and you know that is wrong. You can see a pattern there.
And you at least question, like, hey, what's going on in there? Like, how can we only go in there with girls and not, you shut the door? Like, I don't know. I'd be nosy. Like, I would be like, how come I wasn't invited in there? Like,
why am I being left
excuse
out?
me, I deserve to go in there too. But yeah, I don't understand how people can just be complicit in like blatant abuse of power, but money buys silence.
It's money, a job. And I think we see that even today. Like people, it's tough, right? I'm not definitely excusing them for what they did, because I think they're responsible. But I think if you know that this is your bread and butter and this is your job and your career, and this man is extremely powerful, he probably was the most powerful comedian or actor in television at the time, you're put in that situation, right? Because we know when you become that whistleblower, what the consequences
Right.
are, right? It's
Blackballed.
not good. You're getting
Yeah.
blacklisted. You're never going to work again. To even bring that up at that heyday, would even NBC would have listened at the time? Probably
No.
not. No, not especially in the 80s. I think that it was just a very tough situation. I think they know now that they were wrong. They were complicit in it, that they enabled a predator to do horrible, atrocious things to women. And it's almost interesting. Don't you wonder what Lisa Bonet and
Yes.
like Malcolm Jamal Warner?
I know Malcolm Jamal Warner was pretty like, I'm staying away from this, like kind of stance. But Felicia Rashad, like her dumbass,
she's got his back, right?
Oh,
she's all
like it was her real husband. I'm like,
yeah.
You realize that was filmed. Like if it truly doesn't make any sense. And then she's like, isn't she a professor at like Temple University or something? I feel like she shouldn't be allowed around like a college campus, because I feel like she would turn a blind eye to a lot of sexual assault if she's obviously defending somebody that has all these allegations, and she's like standing like 10 toes down in it, still won't back down. So it's just, that's crazy to me, because she seems like such an intelligent, strong woman, but not my Bill Cosby, not my fake TV husband. Like that's just sad.
And like at some point, at what point do you look at like the first few allegations, then those allegations turn to 10, then it turns to 20, and it's like,
not everybody can be lying. That's very strange over a course of decades. It's not like it happened in a matter of months. It's over a course of decades. Like that's too much to have even, a handful of those women be false. Like that's just crazy that they all have matching stories about the drinks. I don't even drink, and I took one sip, and next thing I know, I'm waking up and my clothes are off. Like, how can that happen? And I don't see how people still to this day, but I guess that's rape culture, right? Is that no, they just want money. But it's like, at what cost would a woman lie about being raped by Bill Cosby? Like, that is mind-boggling to me. So
I think at this point, like, you have to say that when you have any allegation, you at this point, it's going to be 99% true.
Yeah.
Right? It's you can't say that there's actually more collateral damage to you by bringing up the allegation. So why would you do that?
Exactly. And there's not much financial gain from it.
Yeah. What are you going to get? Money? You're going to get a gig on his show, and
it's not worth it.
What do you get out of it?
Yeah. And forever your name's tarnished because of something that you had no control over. But yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of denial, because it's hard to believe that somebody so successful, and I think a lot of men see this, and some women too, if you're so successful, why do you have to rape? But they don't realize that it's not about the sex, it's about the satisfaction, the sick satisfaction of taking
you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
It's taking it. It's a psychopath. Like, again, it's like the criminal profile. And that's why I'd be interested to see like what would a like FBI profiler say about Bill Cosby is the rationale and the reasoning. And I think once you look at that, there's something sadistic about it, right? There's something at its core. It's not about enjoyment. It's about control. It's about domination. He truly is a predator in it, and it's insane that he even got out, right? Like, that's the crazy
over
part.
A technicality. Like, I can't even believe, like, and the thing is, like, one of the women said, like, no, do I want him in prison because he's an old ass fucking man, and like, it's the damage has been done, but like, it's the principle of the situation. Like, he needs to be, he created this lifelong trauma for all these women. The least he could do is stay locked up. So yeah, I still can't believe they fumbled that whole case. Like, I don't even know. And I feel like he's going to live for another 20 years. So that's what evil people do. That's why Donald Trump is still alive eating McChickens. So yeah. And then going back to the contributions he made, like I had no idea he was the, reason why we have actual Black stuntmen. I had no idea that they were using people in blackface to do stunts. I guess I just never thought of how stunts were being done.
I didn't know that either.
That's wild to me. And it's like, that's amazing that he was so, you're not painting that white person black, get me a Black stuntman, and he created all these jobs. And then he was such an activist at one point, very instrumental in like the civil rights movement and speaking out on race issues. And then just to see the, total 180 into that old ass Uncle Tom that he became.
Yeah.
So
old Black man.
Oh, so sad. So do you think that the activist Bill Cosby is the real him, or do you think the Uncle Tom Bill Cosby is him? Who do you think he is?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned before, Anna, I think that he did whatever he could do to get work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it was. I think that was the wave then. Like we're talking about post MLK assassination.
Right.
Because before that, Bill Cosby, when he was on I Spy, he wasn't saying any of that. His comedy didn't reflect that. His career didn't reflect that. And I think once his career kind of bottomed out, now he's going to be borderline Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X. And he had that one. I remember watching that, Anna. I remember seeing that back in college, that documentary from Bill Cosby. And it was like, whoa. I mean, he was kicking some really deep stuff. But I think he did that. Like I said, that was his new angle. He was going to go the educational route. And I don't think that that's what he truly thought or believed. I think we see him in the post 2000 age Bill Cosby, where he's critiquing people for their pants sagging and for the language you use and blaming you for your predicament and why the situation you're in. I think that's kind of who he was. I think that was an angle that he used to get work, to be honest with you.
Right. I think so too. He's definitely has that hustle mentality of by any means I'm going to make this money. So I'm going to, steal a persona. I'm going to pretend to be this. I'm going to, make friends with this person. And yeah, he's a narcissist and a sociopath. He's good at what he does. Do you think that Black people have a hard time accepting that Bill Cosby is a horrible person because they can't separate him from the character, or because they genuinely like Bill Cosby? Or do you think it's just because, we only have so many successful Black people in media that are portrayed, positively, that's the reason why? What do you think the reason why we can't let go of the Bill Cosbys, the R. Kellys, etc.? Like,
well, you look at, R. Kelly is a good, comparison. R. Kelly was the biggest R&B singer, right? At the time, and probably the biggest R&B singer in the last 20, 30 years, right? And Bill Cosby was by far the most successful Black comedian, Black actor, had the most successful sitcom. So we sort of idolize and put these individuals on a pedestal, right? And we have a hard time disconnecting from who they really are. And I think that kind of speaks to the bigger issue is like, we don't really know these people.
Right.
We don't
They're human
know
beings.
Politicians. We don't know what Quavo's doing. I don't know what 2 Chainz really does.
We know their public persona.
I don't know what Drake is really doing, right? I don't know these people. Like, you can't get so attached to any public persona, right? And then we can't be naive and shocked when something like this happens. Like, you really, at this point, have to draw a barrier between you and any type of idolatry, right? Of any person. You have to say, like, I can't be shocked anymore. And just because you can rap, sing, or tell a good joke doesn't mean that you can't be, like you said, a psychopath. Like, and that's what's crazy to me. We're always still shocked. We're always shocked. And I think we need to learn to have some reservations about how we judge and how we evaluate people and that we see on TV or we see on the radio on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we don't know them, and they're flawed human beings just like everybody else.
Yep.
And their persona is a persona. It's just an idea of what is successful, what will be successful for the masses.
Yep.
It's not their actual personality. And do you think, people have a hard time separating the art from the artist, so to speak? Do you think it's okay to still watch the Cosby Show, or like,
I can.
Yeah. Do you think it's okay for others?
Right? Like when we saw Stephen in the documentary, Stephen Colbert was talking with Jerry Seinfeld, and
oh God,
and Colbert's like, I can't watch it, and Jerry Seinfeld looks at him like in shock, like, what, you can't? And he's like, no, I can't. Like,
well, that's probably because Jerry Seinfeld was dating a 16-year-old, so he's like, oh yeah, it's fine.
So Shauna, right? Yeah. And so like I think I can't separate it. Like there are a lot of things, like I can't listen to R.Kelly anymore. I can't listen to any Bill Cosby. I can't watch Bill Cosby. It's like when I heard Kramer drop the N-word, I couldn't watch Seinfeld anymore. Like I just can't. Like I have a hard time even watching the NFL because of Kaepernick.
Right.
Like I can't separate those, and I don't think we should. I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. You can't have people do horrible shit
and still support
and then
it,
still play their shit in the car. Like I can't do that as a person. I don't get how people can make that distinction. Like I can't watch the show. I love the show. It's one of those shows like you could just come home, right, when you're in high school or in college and you're like,
it's a comfort
done
show.
With class, you turn on and you watch it nonstop.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're like in the first 5 minutes or the last 20 minutes, you pick right up and you like it. Like it's one of those things you just enjoy it so much and you're so familiar with it. But no, I think you have to separate. You can't separate the two. Charger, please. You can't. You have to look at what the person has done and you have to say that's who they are. That's how I am personally, but I do think people have that challenge.
Yeah. Like I can't like I used to be a Chris Brown stan. Chris Brown, like, because that was like my high school years. I can't even look at him. I can't even, and that was if, and everybody's like, well, Rihanna forgave him. I will never. I don't care if Rihanna forgave him. She probably had to just to save face and, be in the same industry, but I can't even look at him, listen to anything with him in it. And my thing is like, when I look at like Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Chris Brown, Harvey Weinstein, all those people that have been quote unquote canceled, it's like, what have they done that you can honestly say is like, oh, this can't be, replaced, or this can't, like, I don't think Bill Cosby was even funny. I don't think I have never chuckled at a Bill Cosby. I've chuckled at somebody making fun of Bill Cosby, like his, but I've never thought he was funny.
A caricature of him, right? Like, when you see Keenan on SNL doing like a Bill Cosby impersonation, you laugh at that, right? But you're not laughing because it's Bill Cosby,
right? Same with R. Kelly. Honestly, I think of like what Step in the Name of Love. I could live my whole life and be fine with never hearing that song ever again. I don't see how people can ride so hard for some things that aren't, I don't know, just it's not, it's original in its own way, but it's not something that can't be replaced by somebody who's not problematic, in my opinion. So
no, I agree.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like with a Bill Cosby and the amount of sheer support that he still has, do you think there's a possibility that we'll ever get to a point where we actually start believing like women and start holding men accountable that are in power? Or do you think this is just going to be a continuous cycle of abuse of power and, men being able to walk around and pay people off to do these kinds of things?
I think, Anna, we've seen some good trends in the past like 5 years, right? With the Me Too movement. You look what's happened with Harvey Weinstein, like you talked about. And, I think we're starting to hold men accountable. I think men are still going to need to be kept in check. one thing I'll throw out there, I don't know if you've heard about the Trevor Bauer situation. He's a baseball player with the Dodgers
Mm-mm.
who was accused of sexually assaulting a woman. She accused him of having extremely rough sex. And it was consensual, but then it turned
To
to rough
not
sex.
consensual. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was, there was a big investigation in Los Angeles. I think he was suspended by the Dodgers. He's like a really big, huge pitcher. And finally, I guess this past couple weeks, maybe this week or last week, the district attorney came out and said that they're not going to move forward with charges. And he went on like an asshole on YouTube and said, "Hey, you guys took her side, all the media," and basically was punching her. She had, she said in text messages like, "Yeah, I consented to it. I wanted to have something rough. I wanted to have rough sex, but I don't want to get punched in the face. I
No.
don't want to get a black eye." So we're still dealing with it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's still happening to this day. And I think they were talking about whether the Dodgers, even though the district attorney has chosen not to move forward, but should the Dodgers cut ties with him? And I
Right.
think some of the reporters I was listening to, the sports reporters, were like, "Yeah, I think this doesn't represent what an NBA or a Major League Baseball team should be associated with,
Right.
and they should cut ties." So we're still dealing with that. I think people are still saying, "Well, she, it was
And I
consensual."
think it has a lot to do with education on, like, I think a lot of people miss sex ed, or like, or just a fact they don't know what consent is, and it can be revoked at any time. So I think that has to do
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
culture and society, is that like there, it's not talked about enough. And also, like, women aren't empowered to revoke consent. They're like, okay, you said yes, well, too bad, so sad, if you don't like it in
Yeah, it's not a
15 minutes.
permanent yes forever.
Yes. So I think that's a whole nother, topic of, revoking consent, and it should be respected. So yeah,
But I think we're seeing, back to your question though, that like we are still having those issues, and he isn't going to be prosecuted, and he's still actually on a major league team right now. So um I still think we're going to have these challenges because you know misogyny is such a big part of our culture,
Mm-hmm.
American culture. It's a big part of the way men are raised, especially when it comes to athletics and
Yes.
and even music and any type of like we're talking about actors. It's a big part of that dynamic of who they are, this misogyny. So I think we're still going to have those challenges. I think we're starting to believe women a little bit more. I don't think women make this stuff up. I don't think anyone makes this stuff up for fun. I remember I said that one time. I was like, "Yeah, I don't think people make this up." And like, "Well, do you remember the girl at the Duke lacrosse team? And I remember that situation. She was a female, and
Yeah, I
she
remember
made up
that.
but that was one
That's
out
an
of 1,000,
anomaly. Like,
right?
out of the
Yeah.
millions and millions of actual sexual assault cases, like, that's very, very rare. So, and I think a lot of people don't realize, like, you're not hearing about sexual assault all the time because a lot of women don't speak up. You got to think about the Cosby victims that didn't come forward or have died. So, since
Mm-hmm.
it's spanned over decades, and you got to think of like the Brock Turner case where that woman was raped and thrown behind the dumpster, and they're like, he's a nice kid, like, let's give him 6 months. So stuff like that silences women. But I think it's good that the Cosby documentary was great to see that there is a dialogue being opened up, and it's not just by women, it's also by men realizing, like, there's some sick people out there. So I think that's, it's a good thing that this documentary, it's sad that it had to be made in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's opening up a dialogue for bigger discussions. So
Oh yeah.
before we go, what's your favorite Cosby joke? I'm just kidding.
My favorite Cosby joke.
Yeah, I truly, I was like listening to his stand up, and I was like, how, I don't know, maybe because it was the times, but I'm like, this isn't even like making me like smile. This is truly like boring. Like, he's so.
Well, like that's funny that you bring that up too. Like, it's like, I think art imitates life, and all the great comedians, whether you're talking about, Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock or, Martin Lawrence, Eddie Murphy, the comedy, even Red Fox, right, reflects what's going on in society and has some element of social commentary and really speaks. And I think, Michael Che just had a great series and he was talking about some of the things he's experienced with race. Bill Cosby never touched that, right? Like and I think that goes back to what your dad felt about, like he, in the most turbulent time in a century for Black Americans and African Americans, Bill Cosby's comedy did not reflect that.
Right.
He did not speak or discuss anything regarding race, right? So it was definitely whitewashed and it was made to
appease the white masses.
Exactly. And so the fact that you'd get mad at someone for even using, that's just the craziest part to me, like what Hannibal Lecter said, right? Hannibal Lecter.
I do that all the time. I do that all the time. That's his fault.
Sorry, Hannibal Buress, not Hannibal Lecter. But that you're talking about me pulling up my pants and you're like, you've raped 20 women, like just insane to me how out of touch you are.
Yeah, you pull up your pants.
That's insane.
You pull up your pants, motherfucker. Like,
oh yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Wild.
Castrate that dude.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, this is the last question I have before let you go. Who would you be devastated by if there's some allegations, if they had to be canceled? Who's a one celeb or person that you would be like devastated?
Man, that's a really good question. So like a current figure now?
I mean, dead or alive, honestly.
Well, it'd be like this in a documentary. It was like Brock. Like if we heard like Brock was like,
you're right,
pimping on the side and going crazy, like he's the one president that we know for sure. We've never heard any allegations of
sexual misconduct.
Yeah, like cheating on Michelle, and like we've heard that with Trump. We obviously know that. We definitely have heard that with Bill Clinton, like John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Most presidents have definitely had those allegations, right? But we never, and they were looking for any reason to come after Barack, right? So if he had cheated, even had logged on to OnlyFans, like we would have known, right? Like they would have found anything they could have. So if something came out now, like all of a sudden we find out that Barack had a hidden seat on, Jeffrey Epstein Airlines, like that would be like, whoa, right? Like that would get me. So, but the point is kind of like what we said before, but we don't know Barack though, truly. We don't know any of these figures, and we can't be shocked anymore. Like we don't know people. And like you said, people aren't perfect. So I think if we're shocked, that's because we're doing something wrong ourselves.
Right. I agree. Yeah, that Barack, man, if I had ever heard he did something, Michelle, I'm loading up the guns, coming after. Oh, well, that's the thing is like Michelle is not a Camille. She would never let Barack do her dirty like that. So
no,
I have trust in the only president that I acknowledge. But Charles, thank you for this conversation. It's enlightening. I'm sure I lost all the Ford F-150 listeners, the R.Kelly listeners, but good riddance. So do you have anything you want to say or plug before I let you go?
Yeah, just you're doing a good job with your podcast. It's definitely take separate cars. I want to say that. Don't let anyone, this goes for any girl out there. Don't let them know where you live.
That's right, ladies. That's right. Do not show them where you live until you're married. Or do like Yvette did, and she had you move into her house and put your name on the bill, so you had no choice but to.
Yeah, like at least like get him on the Verizon bill first,
so he has some stake in the relationship. You're right, Charles.
Like get a joint credit card or something. But no, seriously, just in general, ladies, like nowadays, be careful. Don't let the guy know where you live. Take your own car. If the date goes bad, at least you have a way to get home. and you have a
True.
backup.
Players even like me
And
fuck up sometimes. Listen, it was a rookie mistake.
because it was a great, I was listening to it. Yvette and I were driving, carpooling to work, and we were listening to your episode, and we're like, that's a good point. It kind of, not that you went through a Cosby-esque situation, but it kind of just shows you, like, that we don't know people, and you can't trust anyone, and particularly the guy you just met, no matter how cool his
Oh
brother
yeah.
was, or
No, it doesn't matter. They're still, you don't know them for real, for real.
how many times that the Fat Albert show was super good,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a great like record once or twice.
Yeah.
I-Spy was awesome, but you really don't know people, and you can't let your guard down.
No, that's so true. Wait, you brought up a story about that I was thinking of Cosby-esque moment. The one time I got roofied was in Scottsdale, but let me tell you how I got out of it. I remember because I was like, I had one drink, and it was like a group of white hockey players. And I was like, get the fuck away from me, fucking weirdos. So I didn't realize that somebody obviously spiked my drink, but I was in the elevator with one of them, and probably the main culprit. But I asked him, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I remember this. I'm not going anywhere with you unless you name all the members of the Wu-Tang Clan right now. And then he was like, oh, hell no, got off the elevator and never, he was like, this bitch is crazy. Not even worth my time. So ladies, ask men what all the members of the Wu-Tang Clan are, and that might be your saving grace, like it was mine. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Get your own drink too.
Absolutely.
Don't
The thing is, I got my own drink. They were all surrounding the bar. You just can't. It's truly like a crapshoot at a bar.
Get it in a sippy cup, ladies. Like, put it in a sippy cup so then they can't like put anything in
it. Exactly. And I'm like, it's just not necessary. Men, quit drugging drinks. Get some game.
Get some game and earn it.
Yeah, for real, for real. All right, Charles. Well, it was a pleasure to have you. I'll let you get back to your wife. And I'll see her at work tomorrow. Everybody, thank you for listening to Attitude. If it's day or night, love or light. Bye.